In this episode, we're going to talk about an investor by the name of Adam that used his self-directed IRA to invest in an LLC and made a 65% return on investment investing in real estate. We're going to break this down in a real-world example case study fashion. As we always do on this episode, we spotlight a real investor doing real transactions so that you can learn through the lens of other real estate investors and private market investors with their self-directed IRAs. Now, what's interesting about this story is it's not just a message of doing well financially, because you're going to learn that Adam, in 14 months, made a 65% return on investment on an individual real estate project. But the real estate itself specifically was being rented to a substance abuse treatment facility outside of Dallas, Texas. So Adam is not only doing very well financially, but he's also doing good for the community and helping Americans that are suffering from substance abuse. So let's go ahead and get started. Before we do, make sure to hit the bell icon and subscribe to our YouTube channel. That way we can send you all of our upcoming educational videos. All right, let's break this down. So Adam had some experience with real estate investing. However, Adam knew nothing about the concepts and the power of using a self-directed IRA to invest in real estate. See, Adam, like a lot of other Americans, went their entire life, their entire career, being conditioned to thinking that the only way to invest their retirement funds was in the traditional financial markets. But then he learned about this concept of a self-directed IRA. Now here at Equity Trust, so here we refer to this as well as a universal IRA, the ability to invest in both public and private investments. So Adam harnessed the power of this self-directed IRA. Now let's talk about the transaction. Adam met a CEO of a major treatment facility, and this CEO identified this particular area right outside of Dallas, Texas, to build or buy a treatment facility to be able to service their customers, which are individuals that are suffering from substance abuse. And let's face it, millions of Americans are suffering from this substance abuse affliction. And so they looked at the demographics, they looked at the market research, and they identified this as a great opportunity. Now, Adam went out and looked for real estate that would fit the needs for this CEO to run a substance abuse treatment facility. Adam was able to find a motivated seller that had a 40-acre property, and there was an old bed and breakfast on this property. And so it was an ideal building to be converted to a treatment facility, and then it was on 40 acres. So a lot of the other things that the substance abuse facility needed to accommodate, this property was ideal for. So Adam brought his IRA into an LLC alongside other investors. So it wasn't just Adam's IRA, it was Adam's IRA and multiple other investors. They formed an LLC, they acquired the property, and then they rented the property to the substance abuse treatment company. So it wasn't that the LLC and Adam's IRA was running the treatment facility, they were renting the property to the treatment facility. Now, all of the returns flowed back to the LLC, to all of the individual investor partners, including Adam's self-directed IRA, or as again we call it here at Equity Trust, a universal IRA. Now, in 14 months' time, so from the purchase to 14 months, they made a 65% return on investment. At about 14 months, they were able to do a refinance, go to a lender, and then at that point, the investors received most of their capital back, and that recognized their 65% return on investment. And so now Adam had capital back in his self-directed IRA, or again, universal IRA, that he was able to deploy into additional private market investments. Because again, that's what Adam is focused on. Now, as I said at the very beginning, from Adam's perspective, he's not only doing very well financially, but he's doing well in his community, putting together a transaction, putting together an opportunity with other like-minded investors, doing well financially, and then also doing good for the common issues that they face in that community. Now, let me break it down even a little bit further. For those of you that are looking for the step-by-step process on this LLC IRA structure. Now, you're going to hear this sometimes referred to as a checkbook IRA. Here at Equity Trust, we oftentimes refer to this as a real estate checkbook IRA LLC. So let's talk about this. The first step of the process is Adam established and funded his universal IRA. Now that's a really important step in the process. See, in my experience in doing this nearly 20 years, the most common pitfall that investors make is they don't have their account established and funded well in advance. And so an opportunity is presented to them and they can't move quick enough because they can't move their money over from another financial institution. Keep in mind, you, just like Adam, just like all of us, we're at the mercy of another financial institution to move the money over into the universal IRA. So that was step one again for Adam, establishing and funding the self-directed IRA, or again, as we call it here at Equity Trust, the universal IRA. Now, step number two was they had the property opportunity. So they were negotiating the transaction. They were getting close to a contract. In step two, they formed an LLC, limited liability company. So Adam and his investor friends, they got together, they hired an attorney. The attorney formed an LLC. Now, what are the component parts of forming an LLC here? Well, the attorney drafted an operating agreement. The attorney went to the state secretary and filed the LLC. And then they got an employee identification number through the IRS. Once they completed that process of forming and filing the LLC and getting the EIN number, they then went to a bank and created a bank account for the LLC. So that's all step two, is forming the LLC, forming the structure. Now, it's really important to understand for those of you that want to dive deeper into the details, the operating agreement for the LLC. When you looked at Adam as an investor, it wasn't Adam individually, it was Adam's self-directed IRA. So the titling that you would see on the operating agreement is Equity Trust Company Custodian, FBO, as in for benefit of, Adam's first and last name, IRA. That's what shows up in the operating agreement. And then he has his ownership interest and the capital amount that he initially invested in the transaction. So once they had the LLC formed, again, that's step two, we then move on to step three, which is funding the LLC. So Adam had his self-directed IRA established. He had funding in the self-directed IRA well in advance. And then he directed Equity Trust to send cash from his Equity Trust IRA to the LLC checking account. Now, folks, it's probably coming up in the comments box already. So let me answer the question. And by the way, if you're interested, feel free to write in the comments box any of your questions or ideas for future videos. I know it's coming up the question of, well, wait a second, John. If I take money from my IRA and invest in an LLC, and then that LLC buys a property, isn't that a taxable event? Aren't there penalties associated with that? The answer is no. As long as you're following the rules and the guidelines, think of investing your IRA in an LLC, a limited liability company. Think of it just like investing in a stock or a mutual fund. A lot of Americans are familiar with that, right? That's all they're familiar with. Your IRA sends money out, and then in return for that cash is a stock certificate. Think of it as the same concept. When cash leaves your IRA to invest in an LLC, in return for that cash is a asset, and that's the LLC. No taxes or penalties. And then eventually the funds flow back into the IRA. So just remember that money goes out and money comes back into the IRA. That way you don't face adverse penalties or taxes. All right, so that was the process. Step three, funding the LLC. And then from there, we have step four, which is simply Adam, per his direction as other investor partners, used the LLC to acquire the property, the 40-acre property. And then all of the rental income, again, flowed back through the LLC, back into Adam's self-directed IRA, or again, as we call it, a universal IRA. So feel free to, again, ask your additional questions in the comments box. I'll also reference, if you like this style of education, these case study format type videos, that's what I do here at Equity Trust, is showcase or spotlight real clients doing real investments. We don't talk about hypotheticals here or concepts or ideas like you might see in other areas online. We talk about real investment examples that are impacting Americans and impacting communities all across the country. So if you like this style of education, you'll see in the description we have a link and we have a promo code for you. And you'll get a discount if you want to take advantage of the Self-Directed IRA Master Course. So you're going to find in that master course over 25 hours of videos and content very similar to this, but diving even deeper into the granular details of how the process works, the different types of tax-free and tax-deferred accounts. And we even have helpful PDF downloadable guides and our self-directed IRA master transaction handbook. So I encourage you to check that out. Until the next one, keep leveraging compounding interest in the absence of taxation.